Hello. I just wanted to make sure that everybody me, and I know you guys are on mute, so if you could just please use the chat box to let me know that you can hear me okay. Welcome to the webinar on finding out whether you qualify for the SBIR Proposal Lab. This is being recorded, and you can also ask me questions as we go through this presentation by typing your question in the questions menu. So I will be able to answer them as they come in, and you will be able to get the slides and this presentation from our website, from our webpage, and you'll also get a link emailed to you by Monday. So thank you very much for making it to this webinar. And what I'm going to talk about today is about the SBIR program and eligibility, and also about our SBIR Proposal Lab, and tell you all about that. If you're not a Maryland small business, you can still stick around and learn about eligibility for the SBIR program, even if you're not going to be able to participate in the proposal lab itself, because it's only for Maryland small businesses. However, I think you're going to get some usefulness out of that regardless. So SBIR, what is it? SBIR is the America's Seed Fund, and roughly $3 billion in total funding annually. It fluctuates from year to year, but that's a lot of money that basically U.S. government dedicates to stimulating technological innovation. That is essentially the money that's given to small businesses to meet federal research and development or research needs. And essentially the government, of course, due to to be aligned with its programs, does encourage participation with the socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses, and those that are 51% owned and controlled by women, so women-owned businesses in technological innovation, because a lot of the times those types of businesses are woefully underrepresented in this arena. So the goal of the program is also to increase private sector commercialization of innovations derived from federal research and development, which leads to competition, productivity, and economic growth. So essentially, they want businesses to do well, they want businesses to grow, they want businesses to be able to sell to the government and to the commercial markets. So this is a very important part of the SBIR Seed Fund. And it provides seed capital for early stage research and development with commercial potential. So they have to feel that there is a commercial potential for whatever you propose. It cannot be just research, like you're interested in something and the government is just giving you money to explore. That's not how that works. It is more like when you would go to an investor with an idea. When you really think about SBIR funding, the awards are actually comparable in size to angel investments in the private sector, and they indicate the acceptance of greater risk in support of agencies' missions. So they actually want more risk than investors a lot of the times are able to palate. And unlike the investors, the cool thing about the SBIR is the government actually does not take a portion of your company, your baby, and you don't have to repay the money. So it's not a loan. So essentially you get the money and you're really, really passionate about doing research. You get that money and you don't have to repay it, and they don't want anything back from you other than great results. So that literally is America's Seed Fund. So to just give you a little bit of an overview of the SBIR program, phase one is the concept phase. So essentially, it lasts 6 to 12 months, and it supports exploration of the technical merit or feasibility of an idea or technology. It has to be brand new. And you get to retain the rights to the intellectual property. It does not become the government's property, even though they're paying for you to develop that. And then the cool thing is that you also get to you become eligible to obtain additional funding to continue technology development. And phase 2 is the next phase that comes after that. And the awards may last up to 2 years, and they expand upon phase 1 results. And during this time, the research and development work is performed. And those awards can be up to $1 million, but not to exceed $1.5 million. Again, money for you to do your research, to explore your idea so that then you can commercialize it or sell it to the government and grow your business. Phase 3 is the period during which the phase 2 innovation moves from laboratory into the marketplace. Although there is no funding for that, there's all kinds of help, and that's where there are lots of other great things that are happening. By that point, a lot of the times, if you're bidding to an agency such as a DoD, for example, is a huge agency, of course, in a federal market that's got a really large share of SBIR awards, them and the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. And essentially, they are a user agency, so they will buy from you most likely. And a lot of the times, they won't even wait till phase 2 if the technology is so promising, it's so cutting edge, you're achieving such great results, that they will even sometimes issue a contract directly to you. And you go straight into selling to government, which can be a really great perspective. So it can be a grant, an SBIR can be a grant, or it can be a contract. So starting in fiscal year 19, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, for example, that's going to be one of our focus agencies in the SBIR Proposal Lab. We're going to actually focus on DoD and NOAA. Very intentionally. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I tell you about the lab. So NOAA is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and they're going to be making awards as grants rather than contracts. And basically, grants are money for public purpose that are aligned with the agency's mission. And because those are grants, there's a broader latitude that's granted to the principal investigator or the PI. With grants, the PIs do their best to complete the research and achieve the desired aim instead of really thinking of it as a contract. And I'm going to talk about a contract in a minute. But you should know that NOAA phase 1 proposal budgets must not exceed $120,000. So DoD awards contracts and not grants. So contracts are a binding agreement with relatively inflexible scope of work, so you don't get to really have as much latitude as a grant would give to a principal investigator. And you also have payments that are based on deliverables and milestones, and there are other requirements associated with running a contract. So it's a slightly different flavor and stipulations that come with that. Let me see, there's a question coming in. Oh, somebody saying hi. Hello, very nice to have you here on the webinar. All right, so let's talk about our proposal lab. So my name is Olesya Smatrova. I am part of the faculty for the lab. And basically what happened is TEDCO, which is Maryland's source for technical startup success. They actually fund a lot of Maryland tech startups, small businesses. So that's Maryland's seed fund, essentially. And they give a lot of support and education to entrepreneurial companies. They won the FAST grant, SBA FAST grant, together with the team of GovCon Incubator, which I'm part of. So I'm actually the owner of OST Global Solutions that has the GovCon Incubator that helps grow government contractors and teach you how to do well in a government market. Maryland SBDC, which essentially helps small businesses through all kinds of initiatives, including the PTAPs and PTACs. So essentially the centers where you can go in and get free support for your government contracting needs. And the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center that's focused on rural Maryland and helping entrepreneurs in that region. So essentially we won that grant together, and it's focused on Maryland small businesses, especially women-owned businesses, socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses, and rural businesses. So you get a preference in getting into the lab if you're that kind of business, although it's open to all small businesses in Maryland. And in addition to Small Business Administration's funds, the team actually has committed to contribute our own time and resources. And all of that effort is to develop and conduct the SBIR Proposal Lab. And I'm going to tell you more about what that is. So it's a help to complete Phase 1 SBIR proposal to DoD or NOAA. And you're going to have hands-on training, reviews, guidance from experts in proposals, and you're going to learn how to do government proposals in an extremely detailed and very structured environment where you're going to have a portal of your own. You're going to have a portal that helps you manage the proposal. We're going to have a schedule for you. We're going to provide all the structure for you to go ahead and complete your proposal. I know it's a lot of the times hard to write a proposal document, especially when you're on your own. We tend to break a lot of commitments to ourselves, and we set deadlines that we blow off all the time. And a lot of the times we don't have the skills and the knowledge to get that done, or anybody to bounce your ideas off, or go and get help with good market research that's required for SBIR proposals to figure out, okay, what are the avenues for commercializing this? How do we prove this? How do we articulate this really well? So these are all the resources that the lab is going to give you and more. And the timing of the grant period funding actually allowed us to focus on DoD and NOAA, but we also picked DoD because it's a user agency. It is more likely to buy what you've invented and what you've researched. And it also has got a variety of different topics. You would be surprised all the different areas that the DoD really wants help with where it comes to SBIRs. It's not just weapons systems. It's a lot more than that. So DoD award amounts, speaking of DoD, actually depends on the DoD component to which you would be applying. So Army, Navy, Air Force, they all have slightly different rules, slightly different award amounts. So generally, on average, you're looking at $150,000 over a 6 months base period, and then there's option period, which is the extension period. And there are, for example, SEO has 225,000 available for that funding. So as you can see, those amounts vary. Let me see. There's a question here. Can business continue to seek other grants and funding sources if they're in the SBIR? So for an SBIR, if you actually have applied for the same exact idea and got federal funds for that same exact idea, you wouldn't be eligible for the SBIR. So you also can have investor funding, but the investor company cannot own more than 50% of your company, for you to be eligible for the SBIR. Eventually you can apply for other programs, I'm sure, but while you cannot receive the same federal funding, for the same exact idea that you are being paid for to develop the SBIR idea. So you cannot like double dip, essentially, in this particular case. So if you've applied for something else, you're going to have to choose which one you're going to go with. And we would prefer, when we're selecting companies, when we're interviewing them for the proposal lab, we need to know about you having applied for something, and we're going to give first preference to those who don't have anything that they've applied for. So for the same idea again, other items, please go ahead and do that. So how does the SBIR Proposal Lab work? On November 20th or thereabouts, we're going to actually finish screening people, and we're going to let you know what the results are. We are in full process right now, accepting applications, interviewing people, and it may spill over by a couple of days, but that's really the target, to get our cohort filled. There's only 30 people we're going to accept into the lab because we really want to give that individual attention, that hands-on guidance. We're going to have lots of high ratio of instructors and reviewers per participant, just to make sure that you get that professional help that you would get from a highly paid proposal consultant, a highly paid proposal trainer that, you know, otherwise would have cost you thousands of dollars. And you would actually get that guidance right there in that lab for your proposal. And then the way that this would work, so we get the targeted project start, we do the marketing to get the word out to everybody, we do participant screening. We also we're working right now with DoD and NOAA project managers to invite them to the workshop so that you can actually hear that firsthand what it is that they're really looking for their proposals. So we're going to actually have the government in our workshops as well, and training materials that are being developed specifically custom for this proposal lab. They're based on OST's Bid and Proposal Academy training that where we basically train even the top 5 government contractors in the art of putting proposals together. We're taking that state-of-the-art proposal training, adapting it to the SBIRs, giving you the knowledge that it takes to win SBIR proposals so that you can learn how to do proposals in general, which is going to be really great for your business, and also will help you complete that specific SBIR proposal while you're in the lab. So I see some comments here. CCG is a software product company. In this case, are getting any help from SBIR. So in this particular case, I think that Rosie, I cannot really address it right here in the webinar, but this is something that you can shoot us an email and ask that question. So the way that this works, right? So you're gonna be getting there's a NOAA solicitation that just been released yesterday, November 8th, and so it kind of came out a little bit early. We are not even in this initial project start yet for the workshop 1, so that preparation, the companies that are seeking to apply to NOAA need to be already working on their proposals, thinking through matching their ideas to the topics, thinking what you're going to propose, aligning your teams and everything else. So we are going to be interfacing with you once we accept you in a cohort. We're going to give you some pre-reading materials to get you going in the right direction. Workshop number 1 is going to take place on November 30th, and it's a full-day workshop. We're going to have project managers there from the government. We're going to have the overview, what's needed, the proposal process, the brainstorming. I'm going to tell you more in detail about what's included. Workshop number 2 is going to be on December 7th, and that's when we're going to dive straight into section outlining within the sections, the compliance notions, the brainstorming, and work on your proposals together to make sure that you have a really solid start and know exactly what to do with your proposal document. Then there's going to be a pink team where you're going to submit your proposal document, and you're going to take it straight to the experts by the deadline, and they're going to give you comments. We're going to have 2 people assigned to each proposal so that you could get 2 opinions and tell you exactly how to improve your proposal. I have a question here on if we have a health-related technology that's early stage, would we qualify? So essentially, we're looking for something that's brand new, something that's maturity level 0 or perhaps 1, but it's not something that you've already developed and came up with, and then you want to be kind of paid for developing it. So it's really for an application of existing technology. I'm going to talk more about that, but this is for a brand new idea. You can do related work, but this is something that you would have to match to what the government is asking for in the application. Again, I'm going to talk more about that, so just hang on with your question. So another question is, are the dates for the workshops already set at these in-person meetings, and where? So the dates for the workshops are already set. There are going to be a couple of tweaks based on the actual release dates. We could only predict so much. I mean, our crystal ball was pretty good, but still the agencies, you know, they get delayed. They want the deadlines that come up a little bit sooner. So in case with NOAA, it did run up a little bit sooner, a couple of weeks sooner than we planned. So we're going to make some adjustments on the NOAA side of the deal with the DoD workshop. We pushed in the final workshop is going to be a couple of days earlier in February instead of our slated February 6th. So, but other than that, though, those initial dates are already set and firm. And the meetings are going to be in Rockville and on the Maryland's Eastern Shore, and they are in person. So the Eastern Shore is going to be connected to be a go-to meeting technology, and there's going to be instructors on site on the Eastern Shore to help with the hands-on stuff. And here there's going to be staff, full staff in Rockville at our location, and we'll have communication between the two locations, essentially. And then between the workshops, we're going to have portals, a series of portals, where we're going to have the communication going on with the members and make sure that the progress is being made. So after the pink team, there's going to be a workshop 3, which is the cost proposal completion and the graphics. And then we're going to have the red team, and that's going to be essentially a 90% ready proposal. We're going to review that again to reviewers per proposal. We're going to basically be very thorough, give you a good opportunity for improvement. You're going to have a chance to have access to TEDCO's kiosk with all kinds of cool research databases for market research to make sure that you can commercialize your proposal. And then for workshop 4, you're going to have proposal editing and production, and then go ahead and go into DoD workshop 5. We're going to have preparation for submission. The submission, we're going to hit the button, submit that proposal, and we're going to make sure that everything is fine at the end, and all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and then we're going to have a party that we're going to throw for you with champagne and wine and beer and everything else, right? So, I have a question here. If we're not quite ready for this year, will you be providing a similar workshop for 2019? We're hoping that we will. So we don't quite know because it's really dependent on a lot of funding. And another question is, so I can present a technology idea that I haven't developed at all. You can, if you have proof that you have the competencies to develop it. If you actually have a very good idea or related technology, perhaps a related experience, if you have credentials in that field, then absolutely. It is really that place where the government will take a risk with that. And does technology include special use of apparel and accessories? Perhaps. You would need to look at the actual topics, and that's where you know exactly what they're looking for. So are we promoting just services companies? Is that right? I'm not sure what that means. We're looking at technology companies, and that's not necessarily services. So what is the turnaround time on answer from DoD? It takes, we're looking for their response around the June timeframe. So that's what we're looking for, and hopefully we'll know by then when they're going to decide who wins or who doesn't. So just in greater detail, here is what the workshops in the lab are going to include. So we're going to, on workshop 1, I talked about the fact that you're going to get the orientation, but then the workshop number 2, and orientation and all of the DoD program managers, and we're going to talk to you about the proposal process. I'm going to tell you about the lab in great detail. I'm going to train you on the tools that we're going to use. We're going to set you up with writing a proposal. We're going to get started. We're going to get going. And then you'll have the assignments for the coming week. And then on the second workshop, we're going to actually be working straight in the outlines, how hands-on, planning each section, looking at how to win in each SBIR section, the correct writing process. We're going to actually teach you how to overcome the writer's block. If you hate writing, you're going to stop hating writing at that point. We're going to look at the foundations of writing faster and better, good and bad proposal language specific to NOAA, DoD, SBIRs. We're going to be looking at training and databases available for research at TEDCO's market research kiosks. So now, when you said NOAA just had one solicitation hit on the market, do you mean just Any one solicitation, or let me see, or the one specific for SBIR workshop. So NOAA SBIR solicitation. So NOAA periodically issues SBIR solicitation, and it's got multiple topics in it. And essentially, that is what I'm referring to solicitation. DoD is going to issue a solicitation. It's going to be multiple topics in it for different agencies within DoD, so like Army, Navy, for different components. And that's going to come out. We're looking for that to come out on the 28th of November. So that is one solicitation, but it's got many topics in it, and that's what you will need to match to. So Ping team review, we talked about that being 60% customer ready. Workshop number 3 is cost proposal and graphic. Graphics, we're going to look at how to develop cost proposals, how to make sure that you develop proposal graphics and visuals if they are necessary to represent your idea. And we're going to learn some conceptualization and graphics rendering skills so that you don't have to necessarily depend on an outside source like graphic artist. Red team review is going to provide you feedback on proposal quality, and it's going to be 90% customer ready document. Workshop on editing and production, we're going to teach you how to format a document. We're going to give you some Microsoft Word skills that are important for proposal writing people, and how you're going to self-edit, editing automation tools, and we're going to actually introduce and start the read aloud process that's going to help you review the document to ensure that you have a polished submission. And then workshop number 5, you're going to actually do the final prep for submission, hitting the submit button, and figure out what the following actions are. So the question is, what if your idea does not match a DoD item on the proposal list? That's a good question. If it doesn't, then look for an agency that your idea does match. And that's always a dilemma that everybody has, every researcher has. Every researcher at NASA, every researcher in every research institution where they really are seeking funding for their ideas is matching their idea, their technology to some funding source that's going to provide funding for that idea. And sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not so lucky. So that's unfortunate that it doesn't. Maybe you can come up with an idea that is based or related to your technology and just be creative. And maybe it's just not the right venue, not the right agency. So sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes the answer is maybe, right? So eligibility is you have to be a U.S. business. What does it mean? You have to be primarily U.S. owned, U.S. citizen, or U.S. permanent resident. Research must be done in the United States, and investors, if you have investors, cannot own majority of the business. You have to own majority of the business. And for Maryland small businesses, you can only be eligible for the SBIR Proposal Lab. It's a Maryland endeavor. It's actually our application was approved by the governor when we submitted that, and then it was a competitive process, but it is about Maryland small businesses. So you must be a for-profit small business. You cannot be a university or a research institution or a nonprofit. And a definition for small business is the number of employees does not exceed 500. So it doesn't even look at your dollar value, but it does look at the number of employees. The question is, can we have a subcontractor as part of the team? The PI will be from our company, which is Maryland-based. So I'll talk about that in a minute. And you have to be certified small business owned. Now, I think you do. So I believe I would need to verify that, but it's very easy to get SBA certified. You actually self-certify as a small women-owned, so it's just a matter of paperwork. There is no reason why you shouldn't do that if you actually are a woman-owned or women-owned small business. So SBA small disadvantaged business definition is a small business that is at least 51% owned by one or more individuals who are both socially and economically disadvantaged. SBA's identified socially disadvantaged group are African Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and subcontinent Asian Americans. And economically disadvantaged individuals are those for whom impaired access to financial opportunities has hampered the ability to compete in the free enterprise systems, in contrast with people with similar businesses who are not identified as socially disadvantaged. So essentially, there are some dollar values that are associated with that to be certified, and you can be state certified or federally certified as small disadvantaged business. It doesn't matter for this purpose, but essentially that's what it is. Rural Maryland small business is a small business located in Talbot, Caroline, Dorchester, Wicomico. I hope I don't butcher any of these. I apologize if you guys are from there and or know how to pronounce these counties. Somerset, Worcester, and you can just read on all of the different counties in Maryland that essentially are considered rural. And TEDCO, when you're applying, when you fill out your application, will actually go ahead and check with Maryland tax authorities on your registration and status. You must be current on your taxes, or you should be quickly or in paperwork, or you should quickly correct the issue. So we actually had quite a few applicants who were not in good standing with Maryland. So make sure you check on that before you apply and get that addressed quickly. And if you don't have a company yet, you must reside and work in Maryland and register your business as soon as possible. So that's you don't have to have a company right this moment, but you need to get that taken care of right away. So let's talk about new idea, right? Can you apply if you already developed a solution? And the answer is no. SBIR program funds innovative research and development. The purpose is not to retroactively pay company for development what they may have already accomplished. So it's the new stuff. And it's okay to have done related work like I had talked about earlier, or you can investigate application of an existing or even patented technology, but to new uses. Like think of an off-label application of a medication that has to be investigated all from scratch, that kind of thing. An expectation is basically good research that will lead to a commercial product that will also benefit the nation. So that's the idea behind SBIR. And the government doesn't leave you guessing what's going to benefit. They actually tell you. So let's talk about principal investigator. You were asking about that. The principal investigator is a single individual who will serve as the one who is in charge of the project. They have the overall responsibility of the project. They're credible in terms of their education, work, and project management experience. And they must be primarily employed by the applicant small business during the SBIR award period. That means they cannot be employed by the university. They cannot be full-time at the university. So they have to be full-time employed, primarily employed. Most of their time has to be spent in your company. So you cannot have a day job somewhere else. For example, if you're an inventor, you came up with that, and then apply for an SBIR and not quit your day job. Like that's specifically what SBIR does. They give you the money so that you have that burning desire, you have that burning passion, you have a vision that you're going to grow a company, you're going to invent something, and that's when the government gives you money for that. Go ahead now, do this. This is D-Day. Make it happen. And you have all kinds of attention, you have all kinds of help, and that's how that works. So the eligibility is you actually must be self-performing more than 66% of the research. So I had another question on that. So basically you can subcontract, but only up to 33% of the research to another entity. So if you have a university, they just have to be having fairly small work share. You have to have the bulk of the work share. Now, there is a mechanism called STTR. Not every agency has that, but STTR is not something our lab covers, but that's where a university can play a much larger role. It's a technology transfer program specifically for universities and small businesses, and essentially it works differently. For SBIR, it's only 3366, right? And that entity that you subcontract to can be anything really, from a nonprofit research institution to an individual consultant, or maybe even a large prime contractor company. And they don't have to be even located in the United States as a company. However, it can be a foreign company. But all of the research and development work has to be performed inside the United States. So if you have like great team somewhere in India or in China or in Russia, that's not something that's going to qualify, right? So it has to be done here. And you actually, specifically, if you have a foreign entity, you need to explain exactly how it's going to work, that they're over there, but the research has to happen in the United States. And especially the Department of Defense may take up an issue with foreign entities, because a lot of their R&D work has to do with stuff that may end up being secret or classified or very sensitive information. So the matching of the ideas to the topics, that's the million-dollar question here, right? So how do you make sure that your interests and talents match the specific needs of the federal agency, so that you can get that funding to conduct research and development with no strings attached, that's the coolest part about SBIR. There are no strings attached. You have to be reporting to that you're doing the work, but they really don't want a piece of your heart, right? So in exchange for that. So the DoD, the topics will be available on November 28th, and proposals are due on February 6th, 2019. Now, if you go to this link, what you're going to find is there's going to be old SBIRs, just the one that just closed just a little bit ago. And you're going to see, I'm going to actually zoom out of this presentation. I'm going to go to my, don't be horrified, million files that are actually open on my desk. And you're going to download documents there that are basically going to say Army, Navy. I'm going to actually show you what it looks like. So essentially, all you need to do is you will go ahead and go into your browser and you say SBIR DOD, right? You're going to type that in, and it's going to be at the very tippity top right here in your browser, and it will say closed. Don't pay attention to that. What you need to do is you need to look at these two links, those are the most recent ones, because the topics don't change that often. They do change, they constantly evolve and shift, so it's not set in stone. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the times the government continues to look for that solution, so they'll keep that topic the same. And so you can see what was there offered before, and there'll be the overall instructions, but then you see those little documents: Army, Navy, Air Force, DLA, NGA, OSD, USOCOM, and they're not the same. Those components are not going to be the same each time, so we don't know if they're going to come up with that or not. Normally your topics are going to be right here, but right now they're just saying it's closed, so there are no topics. On November 28th, there's going to be some. But right now, what you need to do is you need to open a document, you need to look it up, and don't be intimidated if you're new to government documents. People who are basically doing this all the time, like myself, for decades, I'm not intimidated by that. So all I do is do it like me, basically just scroll through the document to get to the right topic. Or you can just use search, and you can see, like today we were talking about biomedical or something like that, and you say, okay, technology area biomedical, and they will tell you what is the objective for biomedical, and they will give you a description and detail of exactly what their problem is and what they want solved, and they tell you what they want in phase 1, and it will tell you what results they want to produce. They may even give you references to actually tell you more about that, and then there's going to be other different topics. And so reading those documents, actually figuring out what would be the topics, just scroll through them, and they're going to tell you what it is they're looking for. That particular agency, what are their areas of interest? And when we go back to NOAA, they already have a live grant going on. Remember, DoD has contracts and NOAA has grants, and they are going to actually tell you what's there. So there's related documents, and you can go ahead and download them. And in those documents, you're going to actually read what the topics are, and you're going to see if you can propose on something like that, if some of your research actually is related to those topics. So when you're doing that, you're going to have some additional questions to consider for proposal success. And we're going to screen you for that because we actually want to make sure that we make good selections for proposal process. And you don't waste your time essentially writing a proposal where you have no chance of winning. So we're going to ask you what related work you have done, have your principal investigator done, the team has done in this area, and this is something you're going to have to answer in the proposal. So, you know, it makes sense to actually kind of ponder that and make sure that you're credible. Do you know of any conflicts of interest that may prevent you from bidding on a proposal? Meaning that, did you work for DoD before and somehow have the ties in and connections that, you know, your ethics officer may tell you is a problem, or you're married to somebody who works in that department, or you used to work for NOAA or something like that. So a lot of people are not going to have that problem, but some may, right? So just make sure that you don't have something like that. Do you have prior, current, or pending support of similar proposals or awards? Again, you're going to have to, in some cases, pick and choose which one you're going to have. And most likely, you're going to be, you know, if we have two candidates who have got no funding and we got other funding for that, it's a no-brainer. We're going to give chance to somebody who is going after that and doesn't have any funding. Is there any peer-reviewed research regarding feasibility of what you're thinking of proposing? So again, that all goes back to credibility. When you come up with a high-risk idea, it's a brand new idea, it's fresh, it's edgy, is there proof that this is not a pipe dream? So can you pull that off? There is some proof, there's some thinking that has to happen. There should be peer-reviewed research. Do you think there could be any patents resulting from your participation in the SBIR program? That's really good if you actually come up with something that is so good that is and unique that will be patented potentially. Do you require and therefore have the right facilities and equipment that are lined up for research? So when you think about using a university, understand that less than 33% or less can be subcontracted to a university. So you need to take that into consideration, how you're going to solve that problem. And have you thought of how you would commercialize this technology and what would be the commercial benefits? That's a really important question. And will you be able to gather letters of support from any participating organizations that could, you know, show their support for and vouch for you as a specialist, as an expert in the field, as somebody, or like they could actually give you some assistance, for example, that's not necessarily the money that you're going to spend on those organizations. They're just going to assist you pro bono or something like that. So just different types of letters of support. What's important in the SBIR proposal? Essentially, it's the emphasis on innovation. And it means that you're proposing a novel approach to pressing problems or needs that have been identified in the agency in the list of topics that they've provided. And the approach proposed should be the unproven approach and involve an element of technical risk. Take that on, you know, for investment, which is really amazing. You know, of course, investors don't like excessive risk. In this case, the government doesn't want excessive risk necessarily, but they want good level of risk so that it's something that's truly worthwhile. So they're willing to invest into something that's risky. You just need to show them different elements of your credibility to prove to them, hey, you know, I really got the goods to support this. Must clearly identify the innovation in your proposal, so you have to be good at articulating that. A lot of the times, a lot of great, amazing ideas die because they're not properly articulated. they don't have a voice. So SBIR Proposal Lab is going to give you that voice. And that's what the government evaluators are looking for, is that well-articulated innovation. And you cannot leave anything to the imagination of the reviewers. You actually have to be really explicit. So a lot of smart people make that mistake of assuming that it's very clear and everybody's really smart and they're going to just get it when you tell it to them without spelling out every single gory detail of how it's good, how it's amazing. So that's not how that works in proposals. You're actually going to have to spell that out, and that's an art. That's what the SBIR Proposal Lab is going to help you do. And your commitment, this is something that we take very seriously, right? So we all are very, very busy people. A lot of us are donating our time and resources. Our companies are donating our time and resources to this, in addition to the SBA funds that are dedicated to that specifically. We take this very seriously. We're hardcore proposal managers. We win billions of dollars. I mean, OST has won over $22 billion. I've been doing this very seriously for the top 5 government contractors, and we are dead serious here. We want results. We want to double your win rates. We actually committed to that, double national win rates. So we are looking for great results from this SBIR lab. That means you're going to have to attend. You must commit to attend 100% of all full-day workshops. There are no excuses other than severely extenuating circumstances, like you're bedridden, ill, or God forbid something else, right? So a business meeting, too busy at work, customer work is not a good excuse. We're going to actually release you from the lab for that and give you a spot to someone else on the waiting list. We're going to complete all assignments 100% of the time. So this keeps the entire cohort on the same pace without holding back others, and it enables us to learn about the problems and correct them early. We can actually offer you help. There are people who are very competent here and good at what they do, and they want to work with people who are good at what they do and are passionate about actually making a difference, about doing cutting-edge research. So this is a very serious endeavor. And we're going to help you submit a winning proposal so that your work is not in vain and your great idea gets funded. And it puts you in front of TEDCO. TEDCO has all kinds of amazing initiatives that are there for entrepreneurs. ESEC, SBDC, getting to know these resources, getting connected to these resources, GovCon Incubator. So all of these resources are really, really important. And I think it's a great opportunity for an entrepreneur to be part of this. And this whole lab is only $500. That's your investment. And you get $150 of that back when you complete all the milestones and submit your proposal. So that way, when you actually complete all the assignments, you're also going to have lower level of stress for everyone involved. And that's the habit you're going to develop for the future, because once you start running your sales, you start running your company, growing your small business, that is something that you build in, and essentially it's a solid foundation for planning, for building on, for creating a future sales organization, a future business development organization, a future marketing organization. So again, this is good for everybody involved. So where do you apply? In the deadline, we are already currently interviewing applicants to ensure that the applicants have a good chance of winning proposals. So if we actually say no to you, it's you probably know exactly why, because of very specific reasons. We're not just rejecting people outright. We actually tell you and explain, and maybe there's a way for you to rectify that and find a better way to do things. You can apply for the SBIR Proposal Lab at this link at our website, ostglobalsolutions.com, SBIR Proposal Lab. The deadline is November 20th, but do it earlier because we are filling up quickly, and we may not have time to interview those who apply closer to the application close date if all the seats are filled. So it's just really a question of making sure that we got the cohort of up to 30 participants, and once we have that, we're going to have a waiting list, and if nobody actually misses the deadlines and doesn't show up, then the lab will be full for this year, and we don't know yet what's going to happen next year, although we really would like to continue giving to the entrepreneurial community and making sure that you guys are successful. So I'm going to open up for questions. Let me know if you have any questions at this junction. Just to let you know, I'm going to go ahead and send a link to this recording. We're also going to post it on the webpage, the link to this recording, and that's where you're going to also find the application link. All right, thank you very much, Mike. Now I have a question from Mohid. Can share the timeline to apply and then qualify. So the timeline, please apply before the 20th. I think around the 21st, you will know whether you've qualified or not, 21st of November. But the closer you are to the 20th deadline applying, the more that deadline may slip if we haven't already filled the lab, right? So just make sure that you apply as soon as you can. As far as the funding, you're probably going to be looking at the funding when you're going to get the award. You're going to be looking at the funding by the summer of next year. The question is, how strict is the 66% to 33 time allocation breakdown? I'm one person small business and have been collaborating with another Maryland small business. For instance, can I hire some of their people for the purposes of an SBIR application? You know, the breakdown is pretty strict, right? So that is the allocation. They want the small business to do the bulk of the work. Can you hire them and be your full-time employees? Perhaps. I mean, this is kind of, I guess, a loophole kind of thing. I don't know. But if you subcontract that out, if they become your employees, they're your employees. So I don't know if they're going to let you do that. It's kind of risky for them, right? The slide says deadline is November 20th, 2019. That is at the type of 2018, right? You are absolutely correct. I'm very sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually correct that to make sure that it says what it's supposed to say. Very sorry about that. Great catch. Thank you very much, Mahi. So, let's see. That's why you were asking for timeline. Okay, now it makes whole sense. It all makes sense. All right, so thank you. Good attention to detail. All right, anybody else? Any questions? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead. Let's see here. Ron here. Hi, Ron. Ron actually is pointing out that DARPA SBIR program actually encourages very risky proposals. Well, and I agree. We just need to make sure that there are risk mitigation factors such as your competence and related work and any other factors that you can bring to the table for it to be credible. And yes, I will be emailing the link forward. Could we apply for two different ideas in one application, or should be two different applications? So this is two different applications. So in the SBIR Proposal Lab, if you're going to be doing it with us, we're going to just do one proposal from each person, so it's not multiple. If you do them at the same time, nothing prevents you from doing that. As long as you make all of our deadlines show up, we're just not going to be reviewing them and helping you out with those. We can only do one proposal for each person. It's still a tremendous amount of work of each proposal, and if you are trying to attempt two at the same time, it's going to be really tough. You're curious, Mohit, if they work with collaboration or business optimization via AI. Look at the topics. Look at the topics, study the topics that were there before. Again, they're going to come up with different topics possibly, but some of them are going to be still the same, probably not fully addressed. And it's a very good predictor of what may come up on November 28th. But again, it's my crystal ball here. It's just from experience. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating on this Friday evening on a holiday weekend. And I really enjoyed having you here with us on this webinar. And I'm going to be sharing the recording and the slides so that you can study that. And hopefully you apply and hopefully we get to work together. Thank you.